Ask not what we all be can do for you. Ask what you can do for we all be.
Judge Joe Brown, I know you was very much involved in the James Earl Ray when he went to try to get a new trial. Excuse me. I just want to get your perspective on this whole thing.
Tell me, you want me to tell you what happened?
Yes, sir. Tell me what happened.
They got two-man team shot him from the cafeteria in the fire station dormitory. They were using an XM21, which was a converted M14 with a special stainless steel barrel, 63 of which were produced in late 1967 by the Army Marksmanship Unit. The rate of rifling twist was 1 turn and 11 1/4 inches. The bullet that it was designed to shoot, or the round, was a subsonic bullet to reduce the sound signature. It cost $3.60 a round. It shot a 162 grain bullet, 7.62 by 51 NATO, or 308. James Earl Ray's rifle has a 1 in 10 inch rate of rifling twist and is a 30-06, and the ballistics completely remove it from being the murder weapon. That XM21 had a 3 to 9 power red field variable scope on it, modified by a company known as Leatherwood, so it auto-ranged. In other words, you move the stadia around, and when they fit over the target, there was a cam that elevated the scope so the rifle was sighted right in. It had a psionic suppressor on it, which was designed to reduce the sound signature, and that caused the removal of the front sight. In late December 1967, 60-some of these were requisitioned by the United States Army and the U.S. Navy for the Marines and their SEAL teams. The FBI got 5 of them, and there was a protest at the time that the FBI had no need for these. At the time, they did not have that hostage rescue unit, and there was a big fuss about it. But they got 5 of these weapons by the invoices that I've discovered, and a considerable quantity of the ammunition. Now, what they pull out of Dr. King is consistent with that. Reducing the signature of the sound by dropping the velocity of the bullet reduces the energy. Energy equals mass times velocity squared. That's Einstein's thing, but it also expresses energy. So in any event, when you've got a 2,500 foot per second, 162 grain bullet fired from a 7.62 rifle, normally you've got about 2,600 foot-pounds of energy. That's a 1.25 tons. You reduce the velocity down to 1,150 feet per second. What you have is a glorified pistol about as powerful as a 9mm. Now, from the distance involved, which is right at 50 yards, that's point blank for a rifle. And if you shoot a victim in the torso and you get a good solid hit with an expanding bullet fired from a 7.62 at that range, the wound is non-survivable even if the person's standing next to an emergency room at the time. What happened is they tried to take a head shot and they almost missed it. The bullet came from King's right side. It hit his right cheekbone, traveled downward at an angle. It knocked the molars out of the right side of his mouth, went through his tongue, exited between his jaws, left his body, hit the scapula, ricocheted around the scapula under the skin, clipped his carotid artery, which caused him to bleed out, went over his shoulder, down around the skin, over the back of his right scapula, across his back from right to left, down at a down angle, and lodged between the back skin on his left and his left scapula. The bullet did not penetrate the thorax, and if it had not clipped the carotid artery, he would have survived. They almost missed it. The rifle was left in the fire station cafeteria, and some people got it out later. Now, it's interesting that I happened to talk with the late Captain Tommy Smith, who retired as head of homicide for MPD. He was the first detective there on the scene 10, 15 minutes after the shooting. He said to the day he made the video that was the subject of the interview, he had not been able to determine who it was that ordered him to the flop house. He said the two witnesses that the state claimed saw Ray there were so inebriated that they could not be revived, and had they not been intense alcoholics, they would have had double the fatal dose of alcohol in their systems. He also says when he went to the window, it was totally impossible for a shot to be fired from there because there was a tree limb growing diagonally through it, which was a very large one, such that you could not even see the Lorraine Motel. He says he went back an hour later with crime scene and somebody had cut the tree down. Now, he advises and showed me the file from MPD Homicide that says, guess what? It was the Memphis Police Department's conclusion that James Earl Ray was not the shooter. Now, we've got some other evidence that is based on stuff that the State Department and Defense Department does to evaluate the public pronouncements of international figures. It relies on the fact that when humans talk, less than 15% of what you mean is conveyed by the words you use. 35+% is by your tone, and 50+% is by your body language. Okay. Well, they were trying to get a bottom line on what they thought was an absolute liar, so they procured 5 hours worth of tapes of one of James Earl Ray's interviews, and they ran it through. They were shocked when they found out that for this 5 hours, he was telling what their machine said was substantially the absolute truth, with but two exceptions. One, the question was, if you didn't do it, do you know who did it? And he indicated he was not sure, and the machine indicated he was equivocating. The other one was, do you know who did it? He said, I really don't think I know who did it, now that I think about it. It says he was equivocating. And what we came up with in our later investigation was that there were 4 or 5 people who were alternative scapegoats, Ray being one of them. So it's a much more far-ranging investigation than anyone seems to have been interested in conducting at the time. Now, it includes some African-American policemen being ordered to remove themselves from King's presence so they couldn't secure him. Even one particular African-American who courageously stayed there, but he gives us an affidavit that what happened was 2 squad cars and 10 of his colleagues came, handcuffed him twice, hands, and handcuffed his feet and hog-tied him with a rope and threw him in the back seat of the squad car and removed him. Now, we've got some very damning evidence that it was somebody official probably acting in a maverick fashion. So Ray was not the shooter. And by the way, further on that, the Court of Criminal Appeals removed me, I think, 4 or 5 times from the case, 3 or 4 times, and each time the Supreme Court put me back on it. You see, what they did, they tried to pull the trick, and they assigned this thing to my courtroom, thinking that me being me, I would just hustle James Earl Ray on off and talk some black propaganda, and that they put it that way in their minds, and that would be the end of it. But see, being fair and impartial and objective works wonders to get to the bottom of something when you don't let your preconceived notions get in the way.
Right.
So they were surprised things I did came true. Now, as it developed, a week after James Earl Ray died, the Supreme Court released an opinion that set forth what they called the gatekeeper doctrine when it came to expert evidence. And they substantially agreed with me, and off the record, one of them indicated they were going to put me back on the case, had first one of the local attorneys, Wayne Chastain, died, and 2, Ray himself died. So essentially what the state was upset about is 2 things. One, they said they didn't want me to retest the rifle because this is if the rifle were retested, it might damage it and keep it from being retested in the future, unquote. What the devil that's supposed to mean, I promise you, I do not know. The next thing is they objected to this situation. They said, we object because the court knows more about ballistics than the experts do. And see, the Supreme Court upheld that, being that's the gatekeeper function. Doesn't matter. I could have appointed my own experts if I wanted to. Mm-hmm. Then the other thing that comes up is my statement that, look, this is a national, international situation. This is about a man that has a national holiday named after him. We will get to the bottom of this. You may deal with the adversarial process all you want to when it comes to arguments and conclusions, but we are going to be as objective as it is humanly possible to be in the acquisition of the evidence. And they objected that I was holding the objectivity in the evidence.
Wow, wow. Go ahead, sir.
Well, you know, it's just like that's what's been going on around here. And by the way, a homicide has no statute of limitations. That case is still live.
Yes, sir. I want to ask you this too. I mean, you're a very brave man. Like you said, people worry about your safety. You have worried about your safety. I have heard things. I know you heard about. I'm saying they revealed that Ernest Withers was an informant for the FBI. I have heard other prominent names of people still living, like, Jesse Jackson or even Billy Cowell's been thrown out there as possible being complicit in this whole conspiracy of Dr. King's death. Do you feel like some black people were involved in the killing of Dr. King?
Yes. I'll keep that to myself, who the suspects are. But let's put it this way. They do not include Jesse Jackson. They do not include Jesse Jackson as being a suspect.
Okay, gotcha. And, it is so important that people know our history. I just want to thank you for doing that. I mean, if anything else, you did something that's very commendable that should stand the test of time and get us quicker to knowing about the truth about what happened.